What's up, Patreon cousins? This is your girl Megan from the Hood Astro Queen, and today I am coming to you guys once more with yet another celebrity Synastry reading, this time on none other than world-renowned couple Chilli from TLC and Usher. Now, it's been a while since these two have been together. They have long since broken up, but they were one of those couples that, at the time they were and still are forever idealized throughout, R&B culture, music culture. Their relationship actually began in the early 2000s, and it was one that captivated both of their fan bases right away just because they were both formerly in the spotlight. And so once together, it was just one of those relationships where people were like really excited. And also to a certain degree, people kind of didn't expect it because Chilli was a few years older than Usher, if I'm not mistaken. She's actually 7 years older than him, to be exact. So between that and just the newness of it all, they took the world by storm. And then before we knew it, they broke up. Okay. And they actually broke up in a big way because their breakup was one that served as the catalyst to Usher's biggest album to date, which was that Confessions album, okay? Every time I was in LA, I was with my ex-girlfriend, all right? When he had these are my confessions, just when I thought I said all I could say, my chick on the side said she got one on the way. Allegedly, the word on the curb was Usher cheated on Chilli and then had a baby on the side, as documented and sang so beautifully in the song and just throughout the album. And although Usher went on to deny these claims and allegations at the time, a lot of people just have been speculating that ever since. But it did also come out that Usher had, in fact, at the very least, cheated on Chilli, to which they quickly broke up, like following the album's release. And so people will forever tie their relationship, and specifically the ending of that relationship, to Usher and really just the height of his career. And ultimately, I think that also had a lot to do with it. When they first got together, Usher was still coming off of the You Remind Me, right? And then once he really got to his pinnacle, being the young man that he was at the time, obviously, I don't feel like it was conducive for him to be in a relationship. I don't think Usher's not a relationship guy, but we'll get to it. Let's go ahead and get to it, okay? I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just go ahead and take a look at their synastry with one another, because I've just always been pretty curious as to what the dynamics of this relationship was like. So here we go. So Usher was born October 14th, 1978 in Dallas, Texas, while Chilli was born February 27th, 1971 at 6:15 p.m. in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I thought it was very interesting that we had a birth time for Chilli, but not Usher, because it's like, who really care about Chilli like that these days? You would think that he's the bigger artist. In hindsight, there would be some information on his birth time. I don't know, whatever. But there were a few interesting observations that I made in regards to their synastry with one another. Now, let's start with the positive, okay? Because there actually were a lot of positives, to be honest with you guys. Some of the negatives were negative, but there were a lot more positive aspects in terms of their synastry chart with one another, which I was actually very impressed by. One of those things being both of their Jupiters are actually trining one another. So Chilli's Jupiter, which is at the 5th degree of Sagittarius, just so happens to trine Usher's Jupiter at the 6th degree of Leo. And this is actually one of those aspects that really brought them together, just in the sheer sense that it creates a lot of youthful energy. And physically, it can play out in a couple who really enjoys one another's company. There could be a lot of laughs. They could also be just very silly, very open, very free with one another, carefree with one another. Even when you consider that Jupiter Leo influence that Usher has, right? You could look at that as maybe even them playing pranks on one another. Same thing with that Jupiter and Sagittarius, though. Very silly, very silly. So it made it easy, I would think, to look past the more obvious 7-year age difference. They both had a very lighthearted nature about them. This aspect could also be one of the many aspects that I see in their synastry with one another that could support them having a spiritual connection, almost a soulmate connection. I would even say, I'll go ahead and say it was a soulmate connection. And as you guys may know, soulmates may not necessarily have to mean that you guys have to be together relationship wise, but spiritually, right? I do think that this was a soulmate connection, very much so. They could have also shared a lot of the same religious and spiritual beliefs. Same thing goes for Usher's Jupiter trining Chilli's Neptune at that 3rd degree of Sagittarius. Also, this points towards there being a lot of romance within the relationship, right? Where they were just really sweet on one another and were really able to be very vulnerable with one another, but even open with one another in terms of sharing one's insecurities and so on and so forth. This could also create a honeymoon effect, a romanticization effect, to where both parties really hold each other at a high pedestal or on a high accord, and where for a very long time, like the honeymoon phase, the honeymoon phase could be really, really sweet. Really, really, really sweet. However, they also have a surplus of trines. They have a lot of trines in their synastry charts with one another, which could ultimately lead to really both parties eventually getting to a point where they are too lazy, or they become they get too comfortable and start slipping up, right? And it especially sounds like what Usher did, or what happened with him, given that he was the one cheating. But, they could have a hard time keeping and meeting expectations throughout the relationship. So for obvious reasons, that could be a problem. And this is actually a really good example as to why it is a mistake to assume just because you and your partner have really good aspects, you guys could have 80% favorable quote unquote aspects, but that may not necessarily translate into this like being a relationship that's supposed to last forever, and so on and so forth. Even if you have positive aspects that outnumber the negative aspects, if the negative aspects weigh more, if the weight of the negative aspects are heavier than the positive aspects, then that could also be a problem. So, it's not as cut and dry as one or some people would like to think when it comes to synastry, right? But you could definitely see the attraction here. Another manifestation of even, their Jupiters trining one another, or even Chilli's Neptune is also trining Usher's Moon. These are two people who could have even planned a future together, right? Or where the relationship, and that kind of ties back into that honeymoon phase, right? Where things are going good and, everything is so lovey-dovey, and you guys have all of these plans for the future. You want to do all of this and you want to do all of that with one another. That's also reinforced with Usher's Moon forming a sextile to Chilli's midheaven, where it's almost like, that was a part of their brand, very much so. That was a part of their, what really brought them together, in a part of their public branding and image, which I'm pretty sure translated into, material for the both of them. Okay. Also, Usher is a Virgo North Node, and his North Node just so happens to trine Chilli's Venus at that 25th degree of Capricorn, which also created a lot of mutual interests, between the two. Specifically, this is one of those aspects that could even deal with both of them, like really being into working out and stuff like that, and health and fitness and eating right, and, Maybe she could have helped him prepare for tours and stuff like that. Because I will never forget, there was a video they did like back in the day, right, when they were together. And Chilli has always been known for her abs, her killer physique. Okay, so she's one of those types because, she has some Virgo energy as well with that Virgo ascendant. She'll eat a cracker and a piece of grape a day, and she looks great. And Usher has always been like a sex symbol in his own right. And so, they would show off their six packs and have 6-pack competitions and, all kinds of stuff that ain't never been none of my business because I ain't never had no 6-pack. So, people used to be jealous of that. But, you could tell that was definitely a common interest that they shared also. Now, getting to the problem, because there are quite a few problems I see here. Let's start with Usher. Even within Usher's just his natal chart alone, Usher has his sun at the 28th degree of Libra, which can create a full out and out womanizer. These are men who think they know women inside and out and tend to even be in situations where they're straddling the fence. They're caught in between a rock and a hard place, this one and that one. That indecisiveness that Libra is famous for. Libra men could definitely be indecisive when it comes to knowing what they want from the women that they're with. They could be with one woman and then think in the back of their mind like, dang, well, I'm with Chilli right now, but Lisa has some things I really like about her, and I'm torn in between the two, cause I really want to be with you, but something's telling me I should leave you alone. That kind of thing. It also doesn't help that his sun is conjunct his Pluto at that 16th degree of Libra. The 16, that number 16, is a very unfortunate number. It could deal with catastrophe, but it could also deal with disappointments and setbacks, right? So a lot of times this alone can result in a person who is just prone to being in relationships where infidelity is an issue, or maybe even where divorce. These are men who could get married and then find themselves divorced multiple times, to which I feel like Usher has been married. Has he been married more than once? Y'all can correct me in the comments, but I know he's been married at least once, right? So there's that. And Usher also has a Scorpio stellium that is extremely problematic in terms of creating, a person who has a lot of obsessive compulsions, especially surrounding sex. You could look at this as Usher not really being able to help himself, specifically with his Venus at the 22nd degree of Scorpio conjunct his Mars at the 17th degree. You could look at this as pussy being in control. Pussy controls him, or where, he is, it's just very hard for him to remain faithful in relationships. This is one of those quintessential aspects anyway that could deal with the man who is nearly almost always going to be dealing with other women. And with his Venus squaring Chilli's Leo South Node, which by the way is definitely responsible for Chilli having such a horrible love life. Her taste and just her luck with men sucks. She went on to do a reality show called Chilli Looking for Love or something to that effect after she broke up with Usher, and she never found it. I think she's single to this day. Let's be clear, I don't think a woman's worth is tied in her ability to get a man, but we just gotta be honest. Her life sucks in the love department, but that's okay. It's a part of her karma. She came here in this lifetime with a lot of karmic debt to pay off when it comes to men. So that's why her love life sucks the way it does. But with Usher's Venus and Scorpio squaring that Leo South Node, it further reaffirms the idea of him cheating on her, one. Two, I wouldn't be surprised if he gave her an STD. We all know Usher got the herpaderp derp, to which he was sued for giving a woman the herpaderp a few years ago, which you could even look at as his sun conjunct Pluto, but also with his Venus conjunct Mars. That's, I think that you should let it burn. Literally, that's an aspect that will give you some really nasty infections, sexually transmitted infections. It could point to where he got it from, probably some other woman. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was a situation where he gave it to Chilli with that square. I also, this aspect definitely reinforces the idea that he could have also had a baby on her, which despite what he actually said, because he said that it wasn't true, I'm actually inclined to believe that it was. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if she had gotten pregnant throughout the duration of their relationship. But with his Pluto in opposition to Chilli's moon, they could have had an abortion. Okay, it could have been aborted, or it could have been a miscarriage or something to that effect. Or maybe he got another woman pregnant outside of the relationship, and that ended in a termination. I'm telling you, he's got a couple abortions up his sleeve, right? Or he done paid for a couple abortions. You can even look at it like that, especially with his Venus conjunct Mars in Scorpio. But that could also even equate to child support as well. So I thought that was very, very interesting. Usher's Scorpio Mars is opposing Chilli's Saturn at the 17th degree of Taurus, which essentially points to where Chilli didn't play that. She had very clear and succinct standards in terms of what she wanted in a man. And again, she always has. She did even after the fact, even if they were unrealistic standards. She still is a Pisces, kind of delusional. But with that opposition, you could tell that Usher really tried to accommodate those standards to the point where he probably was willing to suppress a lot of who he was and a lot of his own sexual urges and desires, and really tried his best to accommodate and rise up to the challenge. But ultimately, it proved to be too much, and he backslid. Oh, did he backslide? And it doesn't help that he's a Pisces South Node. Pisces South Node men can be extremely, extremely sneaky. You can't really trust them. Not at all. And I also feel that, at least in part, some of this relationship was very much business oriented and orchestrated. And as stated before, they did definitely benefit from it. Even Usher, because when they got together, initially, Usher was not Usher, right? He didn't become Usher until the Confessions era and beyond, right? In terms of just solidifying, putting a stamp, double stamp, triple stamp, quadruple stamp on his celebrity, his star power. So I feel like this relationship was definitely, at least initially, matched up in terms of Hollywood, because that could explain why his sun is in Chilli's second house, right? Libra in the second house. That's literally strategic business relationships for profit. This is also reinforced with Usher's Saturn, which is in Virgo, actually at the 9th degree of Virgo, is opposing Chilli's Sun. So once again, working relationship, a relationship where, they could benefit one another, where he could actually even be helping her in some way, because she also has her Venus conjunct Mars, or actually her Venus at the 25th degree of Capricorn, which, they can be very much social climbers and opportunistic in a lot of their relationships also. So, there are a lot of components to this that could support that, but two things can definitely be true at once. And then Chilli has her Pluto at the 28th degree of Virgo opposing Usher's Aries moon. That number 28 can technically still be considered the anaretic degree, but it also breaks down to 1, which is very masculine energy, and it compounds a lot of that Leo South Node energy that Chilli has going on. And it could just further reiterate to where Chilli had Usher by the balls. She had him by the balls, and she really, there was a dynamic in the relationship where he really tried, or even where he was highly influenced by her, which resulted in him really trying to suppress a lot of his more instinctive desires, or at least, trying to prevent from acting on them. But he just is a man. I don't care how many times he gets married. I don't care who he's married to. He is going to be prone towards infidelity. It just is what it is. And then when you consider the fact that her Pluto is conjunct his North Node. You could even look at that aspect as her almost there being like a karmic kind of play out between the two, where she was put here to kind of help him develop so he can be on the straight and narrow, right? To teach him how to be more upstanding and to put in the work, and be a respectable man, especially or specifically when we're talking about relationships. But once again, he backslid. So there's that. So that concludes this reading. I just kind of wanted to touch on those things, and I'm curious to know what you guys think. What do you guys think about this relationship? So feel free to comment in the comment section below, and make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And until the next video, I holla. Bye.